This is a TDS support tower, arguably one of the most important towers in the entire game. Instead of directly damaging the enemy, they either buff your towers or debuff the enemies. In this video, I'll go over all support towers in TDS while giving them a rating of 0 to 10 red top hats, and at the end, decide which is the best. I'll be looking at their support type, how they function, their usage, and of course DPS if they deal any damage. But please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, that helps me out a lot and I greatly appreciate your support. First off, we have the Freezer, and it slows down enemies before freezing them. It costs $7,000 to max out while dealing 18 DPS. While this isn't great, this tower fully focuses on stalling support. It slows down enemies by 75% right before freezing them. Its freeze lasts up to 3 seconds, with the time depending on the enemy size. Along with that, it has a frost grenade ability, freezing enemies in a splash radius. The Freezer also drops defense by 10% every tick, capping out at 33%, which can be helpful for your DPS. Now, just a few of these Freezers can stall consistently. However, because they're single target, they get baited by freeze immune enemies. They're still useful though, since the Freezer slows down bosses by around 20%. This makes it versatile and useful for many different modes, including hardcore for the Void Reaver, especially because of how cheap it is. With that being said, I think this tower is pretty good. The stalling can be useful for many scenarios, including boss fights, so I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 red top hats. Next up, we have the Medic, and it unstuns towers while also healing the base. It costs $8,000 to max out while dealing 38 DPS. Now, while this isn't amazing, its first levels can provide a decent early game. However, it's mainly support focused, just like the Freezer. At max level, it heals the base by 100 health every wave, but this is kind of useless, mainly because most late game enemies easily one-shot your base. It's only really useful for weaker leagues. However, it can also unstun towers via an ability, which is pretty helpful. It's most consistent with a few of them, then you can chain the ability for multiple stuns. This is only useful for final bosses though, since no other enemies stun much. But even then, a lot of towers are stun immune in today's meta, so it's not incredibly needed. With that being said, I think this tower is alright. Its early game is not bad, but very few towers need it, so I'm giving it 7 out of 10 red top hats. Next up, we have the Electroshocker, and it stuns enemies with a taser. It costs $23,000 to max out while dealing 39 DPS. This tower's main function is to stun enemies for 1.25 seconds. And unlike the Freezer, the stun isn't size dependent. It also slows down stun immune enemies by up to 25%. This also works on bosses, but slows down a lot less. It also melts defense by 15% each hit, which caps at 20%. If you get its placement limit of 4, then it's very consistent at stalling. This tower is also very versatile, even for event game modes. However, while its DPS seems low, this tower deals 100 damage each shot and is able to hit 8 enemies. That's 312 DPS in total with just one Electroshocker against 8 enemies. Not to mention it has flying detection, making it even better. With that being said, I think this tower is super good. Its stalling can be great and its damage can be helpful, so I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10 red top hats. Next up, we have the Warden, and it stuns enemies while dealing critical hits. It costs $22,000 to max out while dealing 177 DPS. While its DPS is already great, it also stuns enemies for 2.5 seconds. This is twice as long as the Electroshocker. It also slows down stun immune enemies by 25% as well. Alone this tower isn't the best, but spamming it can be really consistent. The stalling and DPS combo makes it great for speedrunning. It also deals 50% more damage every third swing, which counts as a critical hit. Its range is very short though, so enemies can slip by easily. It also isn't very versatile outside of survival. Since enemies are a lot stronger, you're better off investing into DPS. But it can still greatly support your DPS by stunning and even act as sub DPS. Not to mention it has level 1 hidden detection for $400. With that being said, I think this tower is pretty good. It's a very good balance between damage and support, so I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 red top hats. Next up, we have the Mercenary base, and it spawns units on the path and buffs your towers. It costs $72,000 to max out and spawns riflemen, grenadiers, riot guards, and field medics. Now, instead of talking about the units, how exactly is this tower support? You see, this tower gives a 20% damage buff at max level. For towers like the Ranger, this is incredibly useful as it gets a 210 damage buff. This is also great for towers like the Golden Minigunner since they still get major DPS buffs. Some towers like the Engineer don't benefit from this because the sentries don't get buffed. But the units from this tower are very good too. I won't talk about them too much, but the Riot Guard and Riflemen are extremely good and can be great sub DPS when spammed. Riot Guard spam is even good for bosses. There's also an ability which lets you spawn units anywhere on the map. With that being said, I think this tower is very good. The damage buff this tower gives is incredibly helpful and the units are super powerful if used correctly, so I'm giving it 9 out of 10 red top hats. Next up, we have the Frost Blaster, and it freezes enemies with a freeze ray. It costs $15,000 to max out while dealing 23 DPS. Just like the freezer, this tower also fully focuses on stalling. It freezes enemies for 1.25 seconds and it also slows down the enemy for 30% after freezing it. Speaking of which, this tower instantly freezes enemies, meaning no chill is required. This tower is also able to pierce enemies, freezing up to 7 of them. However, there's a 1 second cooldown between freezes which heavily nerfs the lower levels. Only max level isn't affected because of its slow fire rate. On the bright side, this tower also lowers defense by 10% every tick, which caps at 33%. Also, while its DPS isn't great, the lower levels have alright DPS for the early game, along with having level 1 hidden detection and instant lead detection. With that being said, I think this tower is relatively good. The freeze is good and the pierce is usable, but the freeze cooldown really affects it, so I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 red top hats. Next up, we have the Toxic Gunner, and it shoots poison at enemies while slowing them down. It costs $18,000 to max out while dealing 85 DPS. While this is already really good, it gets even better. Its poison slows down enemies by 30% and lasts for 10 seconds. Poison also deals 10 damage, dealing 100 poison damage in total. Its damage installing is absolutely incredible if you set its targeting to random. It only costs $525 to place and it's very good for the early game. However, it only slows down by 10% on level 0 and slows down by 20% on level 2. And the max level is of course 30%. It also drops defense by 3% every tick, stacking up to 50%. Along with having instant lead detection, however, it doesn't have hidden detection, but it isn't a huge deal. With that being said, I think this tower is amazing. It has great early defense and the stalling stalling is incredible, so I'm giving it 9 out of 10 red top hats. Next up, we have the Sledger, and it applies chill while slowing down enemies. It costs $30,000 to max out while dealing 139 DPS, which is crazy for a support tower. This tower slows down more the higher you upgrade it, being 80% at max level. But after level 3, it freezes enemies that reach max chill. The freeze lasts for 1.75 seconds on max level, but the Sledger also has a fast swing rate, so the short freeze isn't bad. On level 4, the Sledger deals double damage to frozen enemies. However, this only applies to the Sledger and not any other towers. At max level, it has Aftershock, which applies chill and deals 20% of its base damage. This tower also has a placement limit of 6 and is an incredible crowd control tower with all of them placed. It also has instant lead detection, so that's that. With that being said, I think this tower is amazing. It has great damage along with its stalling, so I'm giving it 9 out of 10 red top hats. Next up, we have the Jester, and it throws bombs at enemies which debuff them. It costs $11,000 to max out and throws 4 different bombs. Fire Bomb, which sets enemies on fire, dealing 132 total burn damage. Ice Bomb, which applies chill to enemies, slowing them down by 60%. Poison Bomb, which puts a puddle on the ground, dealing 7 damage and melting 1% defense each tick. And Confusion Bomb, which makes enemies go backwards for 2 seconds with an 8-second cooldown. The Confusion Bomb is the popular choice, and it's great paired with other bombs. Also, all bombs deal 14 DPS, except for the Fire Bomb, which deals 51 DPS. The Jester can also be used for the early game, only costing $500. It also has level 3 hidden detection and lead detection on all bombs except for poison bombs for some reason. With that being said, I think this tower is really good. It's very cheap to max out and the stalling makes it a great support tower, so I'm giving it 8 out of 10 red top hats. Next up, we have the Cryommancer, and it fires a frost beam which applies chill. It costs $14,000 to max out while dealing 21 DPS, but this tower isn't meant for damage. This tower freezes enemies once they reach max chill, however, this only works on max level. But the chill isn't bad either, it slows down by 75% after level 4, which is really good. Its freeze lasts up to 2 seconds and is somewhat chainable. Also, because the Cryommancer is similar to the Pyromancer, it's able to hit up to 6 enemies. This makes it a great crowd control tower and is very good with a couple of them. The Cryommancer can also slow down bosses, just like the Freezer. I know the Frost Blaster can do it too, but it's not as consistent as the others. This tower also doesn't have hidden detection, but it does have instant lead detection. It also has to reload after a while, but it's not very problematic. Along with that, it drops defense by 10% every tick, stacking up to 33%. With that being said, I think this tower is pretty good. It has good stalling and it is very cheap to upgrade, so I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10 red top hats. Next up, we have the Snowballer, and it throws snowballs at enemies which also apply chill. It costs $2,700 to max out, which is incredibly cheap, while dealing 10 DPS. However, this tower does freeze enemies that reach max chill at level 3 and lasts up to 2 seconds. You do need at least 2 snowballers to be able to freeze enemies though. The chill itself slows down by 60% after level 2, which isn't bad. This tower also has explosive snowballs at max level and is able to hit up to 4 enemies. Because of that, it's able to bypass defense too, but it's not like you're going to be using it for damage. It also gets lead detection at max level, so that's that. The Snowballer can be used to slow down bosses as well though, so it has some good use. use. This tower can also be used for the early game only, costing $300, but it only deals 1.3 DPS, which is really low. You can get 2 on wave 1, but it still isn't good. With that being said, I think this tower kind of sucks. It's mostly useful against bosses, but outside of that its stalling is not great, so I'm giving it 3 out of 10 red top hats. Next up, we have the Firework Technician, and it sets off fireworks, which gives other towers all detections and gives them a chance to shoot fireworks. It costs $44,000 to max out, and the detections last for 40 seconds. Also, the fireworks get set off at the start of each wave and not randomly. The fireworks from towers deal 45 splash damage and deal 140 elapsed burn damage. And yes, the fireworks do set enemies on fire. It's best to pair Firework Technician with fast firing towers, as they shoot fireworks most often. If you set the targeting to random, the burn damage can be very good, but I would still suggest keeping it on first. Slow firing towers like the Ranger have better chances to shoot a firework, but fire less often. Also, fireworks are affected by damage buffs, so towers like the Mercenary base can be very good. But the Firework Technician needs to receive the damage buff and not the buffed tower. Towers like the Accelerator or Mortar do not shoot fireworks though, but still receive detections. The Firework Technician also has very short range, so you need to be strategic when placing it. With that being said, I think this tower is super good. The detection buff can be good throughout the entire game, and the fireworks can be good sub DPS, so I'm giving it 9 out of 10 red top hats. Next up, we have the DJ, and it gives different buffs to your towers. It costs $33,000 to max out and has 3 different tracks with abilities. Now, this tower is really complicated, so I will try my best to explain everything. Before max level, the DJ only applies 1 buff depending on the selected track. Purple track gives a range buff, green track gives a discount, and red track gives a damage buff. At max level, the DJ has Trinity buffs, which applies all passive buffs at once, but at reduced power if the specific track isn't active. Purple track boosts towers range by 25% at max level, and 12.5% if not selected. The ability slows down enemies while knocking them back in 4 pulses. The amount of slowness depends on how many towers are in its range. With 0 towers it's 30%, and each tower adds 1%, and it caps out at 50%. The slowness lasts for 10 seconds as well, and the duration resets when the enemy is hit by each pulse. Green track gives towers a 15% discount buff at max level and 7.5% if not selected. The ability gives you extra money, with the amount depending on how many towers are in its range. With 0 towers you get $750, and each tower adds $75, which caps out at $2,250. This is basically a miniature farm. Red track gives towers a 20% damage buff at max level and 10% if not selected. The ability deals 50 damage and melts defense in 4 pulses. With 0 towers it melts 10% defense, and each tower adds 1%, capping out at 25%. The defense melt for this tower is a bit weird, as it quite literally melts 25%. The tracks and abilities are weaker on lower levels, but that was all for max level. Also, if you want all 3 max buffs at once, then you can get 3 DJs on different tracks. However, DJ has a placement limit of 1, so you will need 3 players with DJ. But if you've got 1 DJ, I'd prioritize using green track as long as possible. If you're struggling though, you can use the purple track ability to stall the enemies. And if you've got all towers placed, you can use red track or purple track. With that being said, I think this tower is amazing. The discount is very useful for expensive towers and the other buffs are great, so I'm giving it 9.5 out of 10 red top hats. Next up, we have the Commander, and it gives a fire rate boost to your towers. It costs $24,000 to max out, and it gives a 20% passive fire rate boost. However, on level 2 it unlocks the Call to Arms ability, which boosts fire rate even more and the Commander starts attacking. At max level, it has a 50% fire rate boost with Call to Arms, which is incredibly powerful. Slow firing towers benefit from this the most, but fast firing towers still benefit a lot. The Call to Arms lasts 10 seconds with a 30-second cooldown. You can set up free commanders and chain the ability to bypass the cooldown though. It does have a placement limit of 4 though, so you cannot spam it. The Commander also gets a support caravan ability at max level, which spawns 2 gunner APCs and 1 missile APC on the path for $2,000. Now, remember how I said slow firing towers benefit a lot from the Commander? Well, this causes a problem. The Ranger specifically is a complete game changer with Commander. The 50% fire rate boost lowers its fire rate from 7 seconds to 4.66, which makes it perform so much better. Other DPS towers perform way better with Commanders, which makes them a bit reliant on Commander. And I personally think towers shouldn't get this heavily impacted by a single support tower. Some towers cannot rely on the Commander though, just like the Engineer. With that being said, I think this tower is incredible. The fire rate boost is a game changer and it makes some towers incredible, so I'm giving it 10 out of 10 red top hats. Just as an honorable mention, I will talk about the Elementalist. This tower does have 2 modes, Frost mode and Fire mode. However, let's talk about Frost mode. This mode applies chill to enemies and slows them down by 60% at max chill. It can also spawn a turret with an ability which freezes enemies and deals 97 DPS. The Elementalist itself deals 104 DPS on Frost mode, which is honestly pretty good. However, this tower doesn't focus on support much, so I didn't count it. But I still wanted to give it an honorable mention as it is a good tower. But the winner for me is the Commander. The Commander buffs towers a lot more compared to other supports, and it's a must-have in a lot of situations. A lot of towers perform much better with Commander, Ranger being the most heavily affected by it. I'd suggest always prioritizing to bring the Commander, and I would also suggest buying this as your first support tower, since this tower always comes in handy. But that's it for this video. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and make sure to leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.